Thank you so much, Ash, for this introduction. Super happy to be here with my colleagues from Costa Rica. And super happy to see all of you here and to see some of you who were at the opening to come. I will just briefly introduce the project and kind of why it's important and kind of our work process. And Kristaps will also say a few words about post and yeah, how we kind of develop this practice and this kind of piece together. And I just want to say in the context of Flora Fantastic, there's a lot of wonderful works here that address the topic of colonial botany from the perspective of artists working today who are engaging with forgotten or suppressed or little known stories that intertwine plants with forms of nationalisms, economics, politics, and so on. This has been a topic that has interested me for around 2.5 years. That I started exploring when I was researching the Estonian Pavilion in Venice. And also, I've been in a discussion with my co-curator, Kashima Thomas, when we began developing a book project together that has this kind of theme of looking at plants as active agents in history that we're planning to publish next year. And for this particular exhibition, I wanted to bring into the show a work that kind of really delves into this kind of little known and surprising and fascinating histories of specific plants, and to focus on plants that have been used both as a form of poison and as remedy at the same time. And sometimes the difference between what is poisonous and what can bring, the body back to health or back to life is very thin. And this has been in colonial history, in some cases, erased by the fact that, during the colonial project, a lot of these plants were deracinated and taken from their native context and then brought to Europe, where they were given a more kind of decorative function. So the piece that you see here in the center and in the back is focusing on 4 plants that we'll discuss: the castor plant, the mancinial plant, the peacock flower, and the coral plant. And now I'll let Kristaps talk a bit about our process and yeah, how we've been working together on this.
Yeah. We all are part of the MA Post, which is a new program at Academy of Latvia. This program mostly looks at the art in context ideas, how one form or work changes or perception of the work changes when we move something from one side to another, from one country to another, how the objects and yeah, it's perception, how it's important to acknowledge the context. So we work on many projects together, and in a way we work not only as an MA program but as an art community. So students get like be involved in many projects which we are working on, as this is one of this. Yeah, today we're going to talk about how we all collaborated together. So I think I will kind of like just kind of like giving the first impulse. I was very impressed about how Anna and Agate kind of like took over and brought in ideas of how the animation should work, how they kind of like the settings. Both fields were pro-disciplines, and I'm very impressed by their skill set, working with the sound, with the image, with an object. And there's a narration which you can hear in the earphones, and research which comes from Corina. But yeah, I will start a little bit kind of intro about the how the idea developed, and then I will give the word to the girls to kind of more of the process. So when we started to think about the timeline, I think for us it was very essential to understand how what in what state is the human body when you experience this work. Because there's a lot of conversation between the plant which can heal, but which can poison you as well. So we got to the point that the human body is in in horizontal position when you are healing or not feeling well. So the idea was to kind of define the form which supports laying down or sitting down on the floor. Yeah, this kind of like relationship between the ceiling and the floor grounds. And we had the idea that it could be kind of like for animations with research which could support that. But after all, after that, the girls took over and yeah, kind of like expanded on these ideas, which I'm very, very happy and proud of. And I will now give word to Anna maybe to start about talking about the animations and the process of work development.
Yeah, so hi everybody, I'm Anna, and just to give a little bit more context on why these works also look like that. As Ash mentioned, my practice is based on drawing, and I also use textile work and somehow merge these two mediums together, and also have education in audio visuals. So it has been a long time since animation has been done, so it was like again a new thing to work on from a long time. And yeah, I think we just first of all just use the combined in collaboration just our things that we are interested in. I think it's also similar for Agate, right? It's like
Yes, yeah, my background is in painting, so I'm also working with fabrics, and I also do animal photography or experimental photography. So we wanted to use these bleach dye technique where we like kind of meet in the middle of the fabrics, and it's also like kind of this magical moment when you like work with the bleach and you don't know what's gonna happen in the end, and because you never know it's going to like be too bright or like change colors or what is this process. And yeah, so it was like a little bit similar as actually I don't know, photography kind of. And yeah, we just worked on this, and it was really cool working together because we never worked together before. And yeah, just like ping pong ideas and late nights, and it was very, yeah, awesome experience to work with you.
yeah, me too. And yeah, as we said, like we started with just the like for me, the materials are the ones that usually start the process. And since we had the fabrics also as like a medium that we are both comfortable in, it also gave us another layer to the whole piece about the bleach dye in a way that it not only gives it an aesthetic type of quality that somehow I think is fitting to the space here, but also in a way of the bleach dye technique to somehow maybe showcase the poisonous or the transformative aspect of the plants. So that was the start of how we started to work around with it.
Yeah, kind of like destroying the fabric with the bleach and yeah, showing this side also. And the idea also was to show like flowers are usually or like put on a context that's like a pattern or an ornament, and put on like wallpaper or clothing, and taken out of like its historical context. So we decided to now put the context on the fabric as like a vice versa thing.
Yeah, so the fabric in a way, again, this medium that also is the one that is usually used in decoration for using the plants as just the ornament taken out of the context. Yeah, we use that also for the animations, And also for the mattresses, one of the things that we all together thought was very fitting was this ceiling that you see here at Apex Art, and somehow also in a way had this loopy sense of coming back to the ceiling in the ornament, coming back to the fabric here, but also going back into the TVs in the fabric. So yeah, it's like some kind of loop of ornament, whether where it goes somewhere or not. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will maybe speak a bit about the narration also. So I was, yeah, super happy with this form that you guys found, because originally we were thinking about filming it very differently in kind of like a physical, like fishbowl or something. But then it worked super well with other works in the exhibition and the context. And yeah, I also kind of include text in my exhibitions. Sometimes I get criticized for that, for too much text. But for this, I wanted to do something a bit different. Yeah, we were kind of discussing what form is this narration and whose voice is it. We had a lot of discussion, because this is, in a sense, not only our history, but we're representing the history of people who lived in the Americas, in Southeast Asia, and in different contexts. And when I was putting together the research, I was kind of taking sources from different historical sources and kind of facts that I found fascinating about each plant, and then we were sharing them and kind of discussing. So it became obvious that we didn't want to do just this kind of typical art history narration or chronological narration, but kind of think a bit more thematically. So we looked at the kind of history and kind of look and kind of properties of each plant when we were discussing the narration. So for example, the castor plant, which is right there in the back, I can share kind of just a few things about it, that it's used to create this ricin, which is it's a very powerful toxin, and I discovered that it was used to torture political dissidents during the time of Mussolini. It was also used by the KGB to assassinate people abroad, and there's like a lot of spy stories about this. But it was also used as a form of healing. The oil made from ricin is used to create all of these products to make the hair shinier, to kind of improve the quality of the skin. It was used by the Egyptians, even and from the Egyptians to today. And yeah, it was also used in as a form of kind of this oil that's used in religious ceremony. And one of the names of the castor plant is the palms of God. So so for this kind of like led us to this form of the prayer. So for that particular narration, I started writing these kind of prayers from different perspectives of different historical figures that are kind of intersecting with this plant, and also to kind of from the perspective of the plant itself. What does the plant want? What does it see? What does it smell? And so on. And when we recorded this, a lot of people asked me if we use voice actors, but it's actually all of our voices in all of the videos. So I think we were talking with Kristaps and with you guys, we were listening to these church recordings that it's kind of voices overlapping over each other. Maybe you want to say something about this?
About the narration and like how I can talk a little bit about it. So yeah, like as we collaboratively worked, we came to the consensus of Corina's written poetry in a way for us as people that are not originated from these countries that are the plants are from. We sort of wanted to find the plane where we all feel comfortable Often, so this idea of the plant being one that speaks the story was the key one, and yeah, we tried to do it in a way, yeah, where we kind of felt comfortable doing it because yes.
Okay, maybe I can talk
Yeah.
a little bit. So they kind of like the histories of the plants, they sometimes are so unusual. You need to kind of like very fast mode where we perceive something. Something so given, something so simple. For example, like many of you know that the Christmas tree decoration tradition actually comes from Latvia, from Riga, and it's kind of like this mass kind of like event on the Christmas. It actually comes from the country where there's 1.8 million people in East Europe. But so these kind of like the discoveries, they are not very simple because they are so overlayered. There's a different tradition, different cultures, and they're one of the questions which we came back many times. How can we discuss these things? Is that for voice which we can speak with? And so yeah, there was a lot of discussion from whose perspective the story should be told. As there's in these narrations, you will find that there are reference to some legends, to the facts, very recent histories. So it's kind of like very mixed bag of information sources.
Yeah, so we kind of, yeah, as Kristaps mentioned, we're thinking a lot about these questions, and even though I wrote the narration, there was kind of a lot of editing and kind of like suggestions being made to find a different kind of form to tell the narration for each plant. So there's not, again, somebody asked me if it's the same, but it's all of them are very different, and kind of they draw on different kind of forms that come both from kind of our culture and understanding, but also what we read about other kind of myths and traditions. And yeah, we decided to use for the Manchian plant this kind of genre of like horror story. And this is the most one of the most poisonous plants in the whole world, and just sitting underneath a Manchian tree can cause you a lot of pain, and if you ingest a manchial plant, you can die and so on. So this suggested something that is kind of, very kind of gothic in a sense, and it's also associated with, the death of the conquistador Ponce de Leon, who was killed by a dark seed in its in this toxin that was used by indigenous peoples. He was the one that so-called discovered Florida. And he was kind of also around the time of Columbus and so on. So for this kind of, yeah, we decided to use this kind of very kind of masculine kind of, army military. I use this stuff for this. And yeah, and other plants that were discussed, the peacock flower is something that's, as Kristaps mentioned, and you guys, it's very contemporarily relevant for us because the peacock flower was used as kind of in this mixture to induce abortion, and it was used by women who were slaves and who did not want to give birth to children, either because they were raped or because they didn't want their children to be slaves as well. And this was kind of very well known. And then when this flower was brought to Europe, this information was suppressed that what the flower is actually useful for. And it was just presented as this kind of beautiful decorative flower. And we wanted to bring this plant in because of also recent events in the U.S. Where women's rights and abortion rights are under threat at the moment. And we even included some contemporary images of recent protests from these, for abortion rights here. And yeah, I think for this we found kind of very sorrowful kind of form of the poem that speaks of, having this kind of very tough experiences and kind of looking at this plant as a source of relief from this circumstances. Mm.
Yeah, you can. I could say something more about the audio, like the background of the sound. There's a narration, and then there's a sound behind it, and we specifically like choose different sound for it. For example, for Mancinius tree, the sound it's I'm playing the sound, and it comes from an instrument called a sound bed, and it's like an object where you lay down, and then somebody under you, if they play these strings, and it like calms you and heals you. So yeah, this like interesting process of like also again like when you're feeling sick, and then like this healing part and like all these opposites. And yeah, could you tell something about coral tree?
And the coral tree, it yeah, I mean, we like for the mansional tree, like the sound bed, it was like one of the more that was one of the first audios that we found, and we tried to somehow find the like this sound that is kind of not as distinct to it, but somehow gives it a specific atmosphere in a sense. Like for the mansional plant, it was like the most sinister in the way because of the way how the plant is in a way this very aggressive threat, even if you are standing behind it. And for the coral tree, for the coral plant, it was also this a bit more somber way of showing how it has this.
It was actually very interesting to like look at where the flower is coming from, and for example, for the coral tree, we use the drums from the specific place where the coral tree grew. Drums, yeah. And for the peacock flower, we use the tropical woods where the peacock flower is originated, and for the castor oil, it was snake.
These rattlesnakes.
Yeah,
was also one of the things that the castor plant was like. The rice in it. It was one of the manifestations of how we used it, and so we somehow with very minimal gestures tried to make this timeline a bit more immersive in a way, because it's already saturated with a lot of research and a lot of visual content, and just to continue this sitting or horizontal motion of it, and to have it a bit more relaxed in a sense, or to have it a bit more like a resistance of relaxing and just going through in loop motion through these plants. And this about the audio, that's I think about it. But when we were working with with a lot of the research that Corina has done, we like at first started thinking that we're going to have these aquariums, which are like going into the TVs, and during the process we developed it in a way that like this aquarium, it's also is like a similar way of how the plant is flat in a sense, like in decorative ways of wallpaper. You have this flatness, this screen that is just here for the plant. And so for the aquarium, I think it also is similar, that it's always like this showcasing of the plants taken out of the context in a way. And so we played upon that, for the timeline.
What I wanted to say is that in the post we have a very kind of like different disciplines to work on. Last year we took over the part of the national radio station for an hour every Sunday, and both Agate and Anna was working on this kind of like soundscape, sound cases. Agate already mentioned this sound band. And for us, it was very interesting to kind of like choose which students would collaborate on this piece. As I knew that Anna is DJing in her free time as well. And Agatha has researched a lot about her family history and kind of like the myths around it and these kind of like histories which goes on. So we were very kind of like intrigued how these two people will collaborate on kind of very layered and complex work. So maybe you can share experiences on the collaboration process itself.
Yeah, so like this work was like generally a collaboration between us two, and even before we knew that we are going to do this work, we already at school we thought of like, hey, maybe we should like do something together.
I think the story was like the day before Kristaps and Corina told us that we have this project. Like the day before, we were in the bar and we cheered on the like, let's do a project together. And the next day, like,
Yeah.
we had the call.
So it was kind of fitting in a sense, but not only that, but we actually wanted to thought that maybe we have something in common to endeavor. But this whole collaborative process for me is pretty distant, especially in my practice, because I usually make these imaginary world building type of things, and especially with like a project like this, which is basically a film production, but also an installation that has a lot of layers to do. And like collaboration, I think, especially in like film industry, is like the way of how you do these things, and it's a completely different mode of working. Because like when you are all alone, I think you don't have this, well, it depends on your own ethics for yourself, but like you don't have the responsibility to like do this and that. You just can somehow internalize it, and nobody will know like what is the finished product or not. But I think in this case, it was like a very good sport of trying to figure out how to communicate to each other and figure out how we divide these things.
Yeah, I remember like these days we tried to explain our idea, because like when you have this idea in your head, you can visualize it, but when you have to explain it to another person and that he understands the vision, it's pretty hard. And that was a good practice also, yeah, to do this.
Yeah, and just to have this whole production with the narration with Corina and people as well, just to be this producer of all of these things. I think it was like a nice boot camp in a way that just kind of took me out of my studio space, and that really opens a lot of doors for connectivity in a sense, but also just for making things more immersed. That's what we try to also do here, to have this installation like that.
Yeah, I think when we were recording the sound, I think that at that point, Agate and Anna were totally. I felt that they are directing us on the full on, and we went kind of like this sound room to record the sound, and I'm coming back and I have 3 versions of record the sound. It's like, no, it's still not good. But okay, I'm trying, I'm really hard. So they kind of like taking over and kind of like managing all the process. I hope that me and Corina are working for them on this. But I'm very happy to because they have kind of raised their idea what they want to get out of it, what is the steps, what should we do, what should we not, and yeah, I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's for me kind of, I mean, I'm super happy with obviously with how this work turned out and the collaboration, and it's also kind of open-ended. And I'm glad these films are also available online and you can listen to them. You know, we're very lucky that this entire exhibition has been placed online and kind of they're accessible and they kind of like, you know, you can go deeper into the kind of the different storylines and kind of different intersections and I think in the future we'll kind of like also continue to work in this collaborative mode and it's been very kind of fruitful and productive to us I'm really kind of very excited about how you know the works are speaking to each other and they're kind of connecting to each other and also with the concept of the show as usually you know, I go from the artist works and build the exhibition up, but this was already something that I had kind of constructed and, you know, you guys were responding to. And it was also kind of the first time that we collaborated. So yeah, I'm very kind of happy about the whole process. Yeah. Is there something you guys wanted to share about your own kind of research into plants and Latvian kind of culture and how you reflected on that?
Yeah, we like when we found out about the research about these plants, we immediately had like these associations with the plants from Latvia and like how, for example, the peacock flower, it was how was it?
Rībotnē, verbena.
Yeah, it's also used. It was used in Latvia as an abortion plant. So, yeah.
Abortifier, I think.
Yeah,
Like
and-
like similar way how peacock flower is used as a abortion like developer for plants. But yeah, like it was like whilst we were working to these plans that we were not familiar of, we tried to figure out what is similar in our context as a Baltic state country. Like one of the modes that we know of, like in our folklore, we have a pretty because of the paganistic references, and that we still kind of have this tradition of like healing through like nature or the seasons of the year. We have this tradition, not like tradition, but like this more of like this knowledge that we took upon of like knowing which are the plants that you can use, you can pick up before the summer solstice, and that it's like that you know when it's the right time to pick them, and you pick them. Also, we do a lot of mushroom picking in Latvia, so we have like this from this side, like this type of knowledge about plants, but also, as Agate mentioned, like this, just to figure out what are other plants that also have like similar qualities of this very hard poison, or that it could also be a cure for something. Another plant that we thought of when we were also doing the research is cow parsnip, which is a plant that is said is like fakely put into the ecosystem of Latvia, and so it has completely taken the control over the ecosystem. And it's also, but it also has like this duality that it's like this very big branchy like weed. It's like a very branchy weed that grows like on the streets. And you shouldn't come close to it or shouldn't touch it or move it, because then it also releases like this very bad poison that you can get very bad marks on your hands. But in the same sense, I know that in my primary school, the teacher was drying it out very, I don't know, carefully, and then used it as a Christmas decoration, like put in with some silver paint and used it as like that. So it, I think also was like interesting that also the plants that we know in Latvia have like this weird juxtapositions to it.
Yeah. Also find it interesting that there are a lot of flowers that have like these devilish names, like I don't know, like ghost orchid or witch orchid, like or like devil's eye or something like this. And also in Latvia we have all like kind of nice. Sometimes the flowers are not even poisonous or anything. They maybe are very colorful or pretty looking or something. And
Yeah.
like yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting also how to see how like the plants are actually somehow mystified in the sense that they are this thing, like this alternative thing to other cures that you know, but it's still like, I don't know, maybe historically with like witch hunts and like their knowledge of the plants, that I kind of feel that it somehow as is still like continuing in these mystified words of the plants, even though they are actually, yeah, very, it, it's something else about the plant that we put on to it. Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of like continue a little bit about the traditions and folk and etc. So yeah, these kind of pagan roots and pagan traditions are very alive in Latvia. The main holiday is the midsummers. So it's kind of like all these plants, everything need to be kind of like picked and collected before then. And that is one mystical fun night of the fireplaces, forests, lakes, and not sleeping. So there is this kind of like very certain connection to the nature, and yeah, I think as kind of like 50% of the territory of the country is covered by the forest. I think there is still this idea that you need to find a balance in the nature, and that the human is never and not in control of it. So you need to kind of like, yeah, find your own relationship with nature. And I think that is something which is a bit different maybe in the West context. If you look about the nature, about the resources, etc.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that kind of came back with my previous project also is that kind of this through this colonization process, this kind of connections were kind of altered and transformed between the kind of Europeans coming into this context and bringing all this kind of extractivist and kind of classification methods and applying them to the plants and then taking them out of this context. And when I worked in my previous project with artists from Indonesia, specifically from Java, they have like very kind of different relationship that is kind of in continuity with nature, not separate from it. Yeah, I think this is something that kind of still needs to be addressed. And for me as a curator working on this ecological topics with different artists, like I felt like this is kind of missing because our very kind of concept of nature and landscape is kind of rooted in this colonial history and legacy that is still kind of alive today. But we see, also as you mentioned, like in Latvia, there's different kind of relationships to it, and we kind of like should think about this more critically. And yeah, I mean, if I can speak about your work a bit, Kristaps, in the show, which is right here, kind of also deals with this kind of transformation or translation of nature into culture in the European context, and how we have this kind of decorations. We talked about wallpapers and so on, where these kind of plants that come from certain indigenous contexts have been totally kind of reconstituted and juxtaposed in ways that is more about, yeah, kind of aesthetic, decorative value, but normally you would not find these, plants living in the same context and they do not kind of belong, together or they don't grow together. And how we love to kind of, this is also something that I discovered looking at botanical art, how, we love to decorate our homes with this and to kind of have these kind of beautiful exemplars, on display. And it gives us, I don't know, when we were talking about your piece, how it gives this kind of full sense of control over nature. But yeah, sorry, I wanted to mention that as well.
Yeah, I think I would suggest everyone to kind of like enjoy only for films on the screens, and yeah, it takes a bit of time to listen, but yeah, screens are very good. Four different voices with very different poetical forms. So yeah, I would really suggest to yeah, to give it time to kind of like lay down on the mattress. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was like yeah, a lot of information about these plans that we had to like also sort out, which was in collaboration with Agate. Like I think it was also like the first time that for me as a drawing artist that had this specific way, the specific language of how I make these drawings, like work with the archives. It was like the first time for me. So it was also just an interesting task of how to work with this archival stuff, not only in the timeline wise, the film wise, but also aesthetically. So to not to have it as flat as the image could be, but to somehow put another layer to it for the connection with the themes that are in the exhibition.